What up guys, Joachim here, and in this video I'm going to show you a couple little things that you can do to help yourself when transitioning from being kind of a beginner language learner or using beginner resources for language learning before you would go on to like more intermediate language learning resources. There's kind of this in-between phase where you start to go from one kind of like phase to the next. Like you've gotten some of the basic structures of a language down, and you've gotten a lot of the basic vocabulary, but vocabulary in any language is so expansive that it really kind of becomes difficult to make these transitions. So maybe what I'm calling a beginner/intermediate is kind of, maybe beyond what other people do. I don't know. When I think of a beginner, when I think of an intermediate language learner, I tend to think like you can basically understand most of what you're hearing in a language. So maybe that's a little more advanced than what most people would define as an intermediate. But nevertheless, this is a good thing that it exists in most languages that you would learn. That has information on the internet that is kind of key to this, but most of them have like these kind of like little websites. Like I looked for a long time for something like this and had difficulty finding it, and then I was listening to Luca Lamperiello, who was talking about learning Greek and that he had used this podcast. So I thought, oh, that's exactly what I've been looking for. So I looked it up, and typically you can find them though if you look around for a while. Maybe ask people about podcasts and things that have transcripts. So it needs to be kind of a short interaction. 5 minutes would be best in that time period, but most of these are a little longer. But I'm going to show you what I would do with these. You want them to be short. You want it to be a native dialogue, like something that people who speak the language are having kind of a simple, everyday life kind of conversation. And that's kind of what you'll look for in this. And hopefully there's quite a number of them. So if you go over to the left-hand corner of this particular site, so I'm learning Greek. So this is the Hellenic American Union podcast, an educational public charity. So I've gone to the education section. No matter what language you're learning, you can typically find things like this in the languages if you look long enough. So I'm going to go to the Modern Greek Language program that they have, and you'll see that they have different sections. So I'm going to go down to the Greek Language Learning Resources. I think is where I want it. I usually just leave it on all the time, so that makes it hard to get to, though, because I don't ever leave the page. So now that I've left the page, I'm lost. Help. Learning Greek podcast. So I'm over here on the far left-hand corner, you saw. So you can see I can keep scrolling down. You get down, there's 81 different lessons that they have. So that's quite a bit, because usually it takes at least 2 days. Really, ideally, probably 3 is better. So what I will do is I'll take 3 days to do one of these if I do the whole exercise, all the things to learn it. And the first day, it really depends. You can see it brings up the transcript from the lessons. And this part depends on if you can copy and paste. So you can see I can copy this, but when I actually go to copy it, it does not copy. So that's not entirely true. Okay, I'm just going to try copying that. And then what I would do is go out to Google Translate or something where I can look up the words. You can look up individual words. You can look up full sentences. It really doesn't matter. But, Google Translate works best if you can do full sentences. You can see I'm clicking paste and it will not paste. So some of the PDFs that you have on this, they don't work well in that way. So now what I'm left with then is just this podcast with a transcript that I really can't do much with. So whereas typically you might copy and paste into a translator, or if you want, you can look up the words individually in a dictionary. And but I don't want to take the time to do that. So what I will do then is end up typing this out, and I will type it out on Google Docs, and then I will end up just copying and pasting small sections and reading it as a bi-directional or lingual text. So on one side is Greek and on the other side is English, or top is Greek, bottom is English. And then I will read it through that way so that I get comprehension of the words, so that I understand what's being said. I understand. Usually, Google Translate on my phone is a bit different than Google Translate on my computer. So I don't know what the differences is or why they're so different. But Google Translate on my phone will typically give me a lot of colloquial sayings, or it'll explain better what it means. Whereas when I go to the web version on my personal computer, my PC, it doesn't tend to do as well with that. And I'm not sure why. You would think they were the same, but they're not. So anyway, so the first day, typically it would just be reading, but because I can't actually copy and paste these, what I end up doing is when I do this exercise anyways, I type these out on day one. And I will just type it out and see what it says. I'll read through it. The first thing I do is every day is just listen to it, and without having typed it out, without having done anything. So I'll go and I'll see if I can catch on to phrases, catch on to words, how much I understand of it. Typically, I don't understand very much. So I'm kind of hovering, maybe 25% of it, which is very low. But you can see it starts to play here.
Learning Greek podcast from the Hellenic American Union.
So as it goes through this, I will actually listen and follow along.
Ο ξενοφών σας μαθαίνει ελληνικά.
You can see.
Γεια σας. Είμαι ο ξενοφών.
Okay, I'm going to stop that. So you can see that when I go through it, I actually can bring up the PDF, even though it's on my phone, and listen to it while it's playing in the background. So I don't know how that works, but it seems to work well on my phone. So if you can't do that, you can go to the website on your computer. The only reason I'm doing it on my phone right now, one, my phone's more convenient because it's always with me, but two, my phone works well because I'm doing the screen recording on it so that you guys can see it. So anyways, I'll go down through this, listen to it. It takes, I think each one of these are about 7 or 8 minutes, so a little longer than I would prefer, but, I take what I can get. So I'll listen to this whole thing, and then afterwards I will go back and day one, my preferred way would be to go through and just read this as a bilingual text. And that would be all that I did for day one, is try to understand each phrase, learn what's being said, get an idea about it. So then day two, I would come back to the same one again, and then I would actually listen to it again. So every day, that's going to be the first thing you do, is listen to the whole transcript and see what you can remember, see what you understand. And then that day, I would actually go and make Anki flashcards, and I would just take short phrases. So I'm going to go down to where the people are actually speaking after the introduction. So it starts out Yahara. That's just like, it's like a greeting. Λέγομαι Yorgos και είμαι από την Αθήνα. I am Yorgos and I am from Athena. Θέλω να ταξιδέψω σε όλο τον κόσμο. I want to travel in all of the world. So, I've gone through this one. I don't remember every word of it, but I've gone through it before. So I would take these short phrases, though. Λέγομαι Yorgos. That would be like one phrase. Είμαι από την Αθήνα. I am from Athena. That would be another phrase. Θέλω να ταξιδέψω. I want to travel. So they're short phrases. And so those would make really good flashcards to kind of draw yourself back to that and remind yourself of the vocabulary and get accustomed to saying those. And have them really quick in your mind when you see them, because language learning happens very quickly. Or not language learning, but language happens very quickly. People talk, and there's not always a lot of time to stop and think about what's being said. You kind of just need to have it internally embedded into you. And that's really, I would say that's a good definition of the difference between fluency and just being conversant in a language. If you're just conversant, then you're actually thinking about the meaning of each of these words. If you're fluent in a language, however, the language is embedded inside of you, and you don't actually need to think about the words that are being said. You just know them. You know them by the phrases. So that would be day 2. Day 2 would be making the flashcards that go along with that. And I don't know that it's really so important what order you do these things in, but probably day 1 should be the day where you listen to it and then try to understand what's being said. But every day you're trying to understand what's being said. When you make the flashcards, that's just reinforcing those concepts and those ideas. So then the last day, and I think that this is a very helpful thing. It's kind of tedious and not maybe as fun as other things, but handwriting out on a piece of paper exactly these same transcripts is not the funnest practice. But once again, on day 3, you will listen to the whole thing, see if you can understand what's being said, see if you can understand the sentences and phrases as they come up. But that day you will actually handwrite out this whole thing, and it doesn't really take any longer than I think most of the other exercises. The day 1, you're stopping to do a lot of repeating and re-listening because there is, it's all new vocabulary then, so it takes a little while. Day 2, you're typing out, but you're still learning the vocabulary, you're still learning the phrases and the words. So, and you're trying to make sure that you have the meanings correct, because if you put a false meaning into a flashcard, then you're going to continue to reinforce false meanings. So there is some importance that you make sure that what you're putting in is correct that day. So that takes a little bit of time as well. And then day 3 is the last day that you'll really spend time working on this, and that is the day you handwrite it out. But by that time, you should be pretty familiar with this because you've been working on it for 3 days now. There's a lot of reinforcement in it. And then so after that, what I will do is pull up a few of these, and I'll just pull up the recordings. And while I'm driving, I will just listen to them. So, you can't, you shouldn't be messing with your phone while you're driving. So you need to have them already pulled up and queued up to go. I actually use Link, which is kind of like a language learning website, and it makes a playlist of these for me. So that way I don't have to do this. But if I didn't have Link, I don't know, maybe you can download these and then save them in the music files for your phone and then just listen to them that way. So there's probably other different things that you could explore and ways that you could do that. But after you've spent 3 days working on this, you want to kind of like have it occasionally pop up after that so that you hear it again and it reinforces that, and then that way you're continuing to learn it, because then you're not learning it with the transcript, you're actually just hearing and learning to listen and internalize what's being said through the spoken meaning without any kind of written script to assist you. So that way you actually, like, this is from beginning to end a continuously helpful process in the language learning process, I guess. So hopefully that's been helpful. Maybe gives some of you some ideas and tips of things to look for that will help move you from some of the earlier, more beginner phases of language learning to the more advanced phases. I hope you guys are well. Take it easy. Remember to hit like, subscribe if you want to follow and get more videos. And I will talk to you in a video coming very soon.